She stood silently in the corridor, staring at the suitcases, the laptop, and his briefcase. They lay there, unnoticed by her when she first entered. She turned back toward the office and looked at the man sitting in the shadows. "You're crazy. You're leaving me and our 2 sons because of one mistake with Coral? I made a stupid, drunken mistake a few hours ago," she said, her voice rising in frustration. "I didn't have an affair. I didn't betray you. You're out of your mind." When he didn't respond, she stepped closer, but he raised his hand again, gesturing for her to stop. She froze, unsure of what to make of the man in front of her. She wondered if he had suffered some kind of breakdown. This man, sitting in the shadows, wasn't her husband. Not the man she had lived with for 8 years. No one could change so drastically in a matter of hours. He had never behaved like this before. The worst part was that there was no explanation for it. Nothing had happened at the party to warrant such a reaction. She backed away but didn't sit down. "Can you at least tell me why? Can you do that for me?" "I had a moment of epiphany," he finally said. She heard the words but couldn't understand their meaning. "A moment of epiphany? What are you talking about? Why are you doing this?" She knew he thought of himself as smarter than her, smarter than anyone in her family or circle of friends. But why did he feel the need to remind her of it now, rubbing their noses in it? "Put it in words I can understand," she demanded. The shadowed figure shifted slightly, lowering his head until it rested on his closed fists. "I'm very sorry, Diana," he said quietly, "but this is the truth. I don't want to do this." "That's just what English literature professors think and say," she snapped. He shook his head. "It's not that complicated. We all, every single one of us, go through life without truly seeing what it's all about. We're blinded by the little details of our daily existence. Waking up, brushing our teeth, going to work, paying bills, watching TV, dealing with the kids catching colds, wondering if we're gaining weight, or if our spouses are looking at someone else. We don't ever take a step back to see the bigger picture of our lives, except in rare moments." He paused, and she waited, hoping he would continue. "I had one of those rare moments of epiphany this evening," he said again. "You keep saying that, but what does it mean? What did you see?" she asked. Even though his face remained obscured, she could feel his piercing gaze, as though it were burning into her skin. "I saw our life, Diana," he said. "I saw who we are, who we were, and who we've become. It had very little to do with what happened at the party. You're right. Leaving because of one fight, one mistake, one incident would be insane. But that's not why I'm leaving." "Then why?" "I'm leaving because I realized something. Our marriage was a mistake. I love you, but you don't love me. I'll never be able to satisfy you, not emotionally, not intimately. You're a good woman, and you'll never leave me, because you always keep your promises. But we're too young to spend the next 40 or 50 years trapped in something that neither of us truly wants. That's why I'm leaving." He sighed. "When we're done with this conversation, I'll go." 3 hours earlier, he had pulled into the driveway at 9:30 p.m. His cell phone had been silent since he left the Rivers' trailer park south of Palatka at 8 p.m. That's where he had dropped off Diana and about 75 of her close friends and extended family for their monthly party. A tradition for nearly the entire 8 years of their marriage. The house was dark except for the automatic yard light with its motion sensor, which illuminated the driveway. Limping slightly, he made his way toward the door. It had been a rowdy evening, and he felt much older than his 34 years, closer to 74. Carrying a 6-pack of Miller Lite, he slipped into the house. He turned on the kitchen light and sat down at the table where they usually ate their meals. It wasn't the small dining nook, where they were supposed to eat, but the larger table they preferred. He unscrewed the top of one bottle, took a long sip of the cold, refreshing beer, and let it slide down his throat. Then he drank another. All the while, he waited for his cell phone to ring, for some message to come through. But nothing. He stared at the pictures on the refrigerator door, held up by magnets. There was a drawing Billy, their 5-year-old, had made at school with a pencil. Next to it was a photo of David, their 7-year-old, catching his first pass at a Pop Warner football game. His throat tightened as he looked at the photo. He fought back the urge to cry. David's young body was frozen mid-action, captured in the moment of his first athletic triumph. His mother, with her dark hair and slender figure, had passed her features on to both boys. They had inherited her dark brown hair instead of my sandy blonde, and her light brown eyes instead of my ice blue ones. I had a hard time suppressing the lump in my throat. They and their mother were my entire world. Just a few hours ago, I had come terrifyingly close to losing them all. The sensation was like standing frozen on a train track in the dead of night, helplessly watching a train barrel toward me. I took another sip of my beer and rested my head against the dark grainwood of the table. For a moment, I let myself feel the weight of everything pressing down on me. I finished the bottle, then forced myself to stand. Sooner or later, the phone would ring. Eventually, the front door would open, and I'd have to act. I couldn't just sit there and wait. I went upstairs to the bedroom Diana and I had shared for the past 5 years, ever since we moved to this rather expensive neighborhood in Mandarin. We had chosen the area because of the good schools. I taught an introductory English literature course at Jacksonville University, a small private liberal arts college on the other side of town. The commute was long, hours every day, but I liked the Mandarin area more than the neighborhoods near the university. So, I had accepted the daily grind for the sake of what was supposed to be a better future for our family. Opening the closet door, I found the 2 suitcases Diana and I had used on our last cruise to the Bahamas 2 years ago. I began pulling open drawers, methodically gathering clothes. A week's worth of trousers, shirts, and jackets. I reminded myself to grab a razor, a toothbrush, toothpaste, a few medications, everything I'd need for the trip ahead. As I leaned over the chest of drawers, I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat. I fought it back. This trip would never end. It wasn't just a trip. It was an escape from everything I had ever loved. I knew I would never come back. If I let myself dwell on that thought for too long, I knew I'd freeze, paralyzed by indecision. So, I moved methodically, focusing only on the task at hand. I packed everything I needed to start life again, alone, after 8 years of marriage. I found my laptop and briefcase, which held work I'd need for the university. Once I had packed everything, I carried the suitcases, laptop, and briefcase into the hallway leading to the dining room, just to the left of the front door. No one would notice the bags unless they actually entered the dining room. After collecting everything I could think of, I grabbed a 6-pack of Michelob, 5 bottles now since I'd already had one, and went into the office. The front door opened into a hallway that branched off to the right and led to the office. Inside, I sank into an easy chair at the far end of the room, placing the Michelob on the glass coffee table in front of me. Behind the chair was a floor lamp, which I turned off. A light in the corridor could still be activated by anyone entering the house, but I wanted the office to remain dim. Standing on a chair, I unscrewed the light bulb in the center of the office until it was loose enough not to turn on when the switch was flipped. When everything was ready, I sat back down in the soft chair, sinking into the darkness of what used to be my home. I opened the second Michelob and began to drink, slowly, in small sips. At around 11 p.m., my cell phone rang for the first time. The screen of the old Nokia flip phone glowed in the dark, and I immediately recognized Diana's number. I didn't answer. 3 minutes later, I heard the signal for a voicemail. I didn't open it. 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. Then 3 minutes after that. And 5 minutes after that. And 10 minutes later. Then another 5. Diana called her father. Then her older brother, Dave. Then her younger sister, Kelly. Then Diana called me again. If I still had a sense of humor left, I might have found the parade of phone calls amusing. But any humor I'd once had died hours ago. I doubted I'd find anything funny again for a very long time, if ever. The house remained quiet, save for the occasional vibrating of my phone. The phone rang again, the home phone this time, then the cell phone, and then back to the home phone. I had just finished my second Michelab and started my third. Time crawled forward like a traitor, refusing to race ahead or rewind, so the day that had destroyed my life could fade into the past and grant me a second chance. Even as I clung to this normal human desire, deep down I knew the truth. What had happened today wasn't confined to a single moment or even a single day. To undo the damage, I'd have to turn back time at least 8 years, and that, of course, was impossible. It was a cool November evening, not too cold, but cold enough to feel the sharpness in the air. The RV site and cabins near Lake Ko, south of Palatka, were typically empty this time of year. That made it an ideal spot for Richard Carter, his extended clan, and their friends to host their monthly parties. It was a quiet place where no one complained about noise. No one called the police, and everyone could relax. Richard Carter and his wife, Ricky, had raised a brood of 9 children, 8 of whom were still alive. Whenever the Carters gathered their children, extended family, and friends together, the crowd swelled to over 100 adults. Richard and Ricky had built their fortune with a road and asphalt paving company, becoming millionaires by the late 1960s. They enjoyed hosting these monthly Saturday night parties. There was always Southern rock blaring over the speakers, fried chicken, ribs, oysters, and beer and spirits to suit every taste. Diana and I didn't attend every month, but we tried to go as often as we could. Richard and Ricky had gone out of their way to welcome a Yankee outsider like me into their family. I was from the strange land of Massachusetts, after all. Still, I knew they sometimes struggled to understand me, how I spoke, how I thought, or even how I earned a living. I didn't sell cars, fix them, build houses, mortgage parking spaces, or make money in the practical ways they did. I stood in front of bored young people, lecturing them about poetry, novels, essays, and other nonsense. Most of the Carter clan had little understanding of or interest in what I did. Drinking at these gatherings usually started around noon. The cabins, along with a few RVs, were available for anyone who needed to sleep off their indulgence. Diana and I had sent our boys to stay with the Fletchers, whose family we trusted. The Fletchers knew we might be back late, maybe even the next morning. After all, we watched their kids when they needed us. At the party, there was an old concrete dance pavilion that was only used when the Carters hosted their monthly get-togethers. A loudspeaker system was set up for music. By mid-afternoon, we had eaten and drunk a little, while people continued arriving and pouring their drinks. By 5 p.m., as darkness began to settle, the music grew louder and the drinking more intense. Diana wandered around, chatting with people. I lingered by one of the tables, still laden with food, idly eating a few grapes. In the fading twilight, she shimmered like a ghost. She wore a flowing white dress that clung to her hips, highlighting her curves, her full bottom and her 36C breasts, which seemed even more prominent under the fabric. Her long, dark hair cascaded down her back, and for a moment, I thought I had never seen anyone more beautiful. At these parties, I often found myself watching her from a distance, mesmerized. Dancing and drinking weren't my thing, but I could spend hours marveling at her. It amazed me that an outsider like me could have stolen her from the countless men who had pursued her before we met. Men who undoubtedly still wished they could have her. As usual, the combination of drinking, dancing, seductive women, and lustful men created moments of tension. At one point, one of Kelly's ex-boyfriends took her out to dance. The man, clearly drunk, held her too close and groped her in front of everyone. Her husband, Billy, stormed over and knocked the guy out with a thunderous right hook. Cooler heads eventually prevailed. Within minutes, the two men were shaking hands. The ex-boyfriend received a kiss on the cheek from Kelly, and Billy and Kelly wandered off, likely looking for a quiet spot to do what they always did at these parties. The pavilion began to fill with people as the music played on. Even Richard and Ricky were swaying to the beat of some southern rock track. But then I noticed something that made my stomach sink. I had lost track of Diana, and when I finally spotted her, my heart clenched. She was slow dancing with a tall, dark-haired man in a cotton shirt and jeans. She melted into his arms, and I could see his large hands sliding up and down her back, almost to the curve of her hips. She pulled his hands away when they drifted too low, but she stayed close to him. The man was Bobby Trescott, one of the guys who had pursued her before I entered the picture. When I first met Diana, she was working at an insurance company, and I had gone in to transfer my auto insurance to her office. For reasons I still didn't fully understand, she liked me, a stranger with a strange accent, and 6 months later we were married. Bobby hadn't taken it well. He still called her occasionally and even visited her from time to time. Diana insisted that he was just a friend, not an ex-boyfriend, and she refused to cut him off. At these parties, Bobby always danced too close to her, touched her inappropriately, and made snide comments about me to entertain the crowd. I watched them now, jealousy boiling inside me. I started making my way through the twilight toward them. Diana swayed to the music, her body close to his. Drunk. Not enough to be completely out of control, but enough to relax. Diana seemed to melt into Bobby's arms. I got close enough to them and said loudly enough for both to hear, "Hey Bobby, do you mind if I cut in?" Diana turned to look at me, her expression calm, without a trace of guilt. She smiled lazily. "Hey, baby, I was just having a little dance with old Bobby. I promised him this one. It's the dance from our prom. You don't mind if I finish with him, do you?" Bobby smiled at me, that smug grin of his, and I saw his left hand slide up under her blouse to cup her breast. The darkness made it hard for others to see, but I was close enough to catch every disgusting movement. Diana gave him a strange look, then turned to me. I tried to read her expression. Was she angry at him for what he was doing? Or at me, for not stepping in sooner? My voice stayed as calm as I could manage. "Bobby, get your hand off my wife's breast." His grin widened. "Or what, Lyle? Jesus Christ, this guy's name is Lyle? Does that sound like a little girl's name to anyone else?" "Hey, Lyle, this is so damn funny." I hesitated. I hadn't been in a fistfight in over 20 years, and I wasn't eager to start now. But I stood my ground. "I don't care what you think about my name. Get your hands off my wife." Diana reached up and pulled his hand away, but her tone shocked me. "Okay, Bobby, calm down. Why do you always act like a clown around Lyle? He's my husband. He's not as rude as you are. You're always trying to get him into a fight just because you know you'd win. That's not fair." She turned to me, her voice sharper than I expected. "And Lyle, I'm not some little girl. Bobby's a little drunk, but I can handle him. I've known him almost my whole life. You don't have to make a scene trying to save me." "Damn, I'll probably have to save you." Her words hit me like a slap. For a moment, I couldn't believe what I just heard. Around us, I could hear snickering and soft laughter. Couples nearby had overheard every word. "What the hell did you just say?" I asked, my voice low, trembling with anger. Her eyes widened slightly, and I could tell she hadn't thought about the impact of her words. "Oh, Lyle, I'm sorry, baby. That's not what I meant." Before she could finish, Bobby stepped in, pushing her aside. "What she meant," he sneered, "is that if you get in my way, I'll knock your ass down and smash your face in, you thick-headed little prick. The only reason I haven't done it already is because she keeps begging me not to hurt you." He leaned in closer, his voice dripping with mockery. "What kind of man hides behind his wife's skirts? Hell, I'm not even sure you're man enough to get her pregnant. You probably don't even have the equipment to do it. Why don't you ask Diana sometime? She used to think my equipment was damn good. I bet a pencil would fill her up more than you could." The mocking laughter stung, and I felt the weight of people gathering around us. Someone had spilled a drink on the concrete, and as I tried to move out of Bobby's way, my foot slipped. I fell hard on my back, the impact knocking the wind out of me. As I struggled to get up, Diana's brother Dave and one of his friends grabbed Bobby by the arms. Bobby didn't resist, probably realizing he'd already done enough damage and would only gain more attention by fighting back. But he wasn't done mocking me. "Ask her, Lyle," he called out, laughing. "She'll tell you the truth." At that moment, Richard Carter, Diana's father, stepped into the circle of onlookers. His voice was calm but firm. "Okay, Bobby, that's enough. We let you come to these parties because you're an old friend, but you've crossed the line. Get out of here." I looked up from the ground and saw Bobby's smug grin. Around him, faces tried to suppress smiles, or didn't bother hiding them at all. Then I looked at Diana. Her expression was serious, but there was something else there. She was struggling to contain herself. She thought it was funny. She thought it was funny. When I met her gaze, she turned away. "Dad," Diana said, addressing her father, "Bobby's just drunk. He didn't mean anything by it. You know how he and Lyle fight, it doesn't mean anything. I promised him this dance, anyway." Even Richard looked at her in disbelief. "Are you sure this is what you want, Diana? After what Bobby said about your husband?" Diana turned back to me, her face unreadable. "Lyle's his own man, Dad. If he's upset about what Bobby's doing, he knows what to do about it. Isn't that right, baby?" Her words hit harder than Bobby's insults. Slowly, I pushed myself off the ground and rose to my feet. I didn't answer her. I didn't say anything to Bobby or Richard or anyone else. I just turned and walked away. Behind me, Bobby laughed again. More laughter followed, and I wanted so badly to believe Diana wasn't among them. But I didn't turn around to find out. As I left the dance floor, Richard caught up with me. He put a hand on my shoulder and spoke softly. "I know you're angry right now, but listen to me. I know Diana loves you. Whether you believe it or not, she does. But women, sometimes they want to know their man. Where you come from, they may not do this," Richard said, his voice low and steady. "But down here, a woman won't respect a man who backs away from another man trying to get close to her. You do what you think is right. But even if Bobby beats the crap out of you, at least fighting him would show Diana that you care enough to fight for her." I kept walking. "You're right, Richard. Where I come from, women don't do that. A good woman doesn't give some sniffing dog encouragement to get into a situation where her husband has to fight for her. Not if she loves her husband, not if they have a real marriage. Now, I'm not so sure about either." He grabbed my hand, and though I had every reason to pull away, I had too much respect for him to do so. "Maybe you're right," he said after a pause. "Maybe she has lost some respect for you. I'm just her daddy. I can't interfere in this. But I can tell you this. She loves you. Don't do anything stupid now. Just go somewhere, have a drink, and chill." Everything will work itself out. Maybe. I didn't respond. I just kept walking. The driveway lit up at 12:45 as a car pulled in. I had drunk 2.5 Michelobs by then and was feeling pretty good, or at least as good as I could under the circumstances. I heard car doors open and voices. I opened the window next to my chair. The air was cool, but I didn't care. With the car parked on the sloped driveway, even their whispers carried clearly, as if they were standing right beside me. "He's here," came Dave's voice, Diana's older brother. "Thank God," someone muttered. "What a son of a—" "Cool down," Dave interrupted. "You're sober now, after the way you showed your ass earlier. Just be glad he's here and not spending the night with some random woman like most guys would." "Shut up," Diana snapped. "He's my husband. A big baby who goes off sucking his thumb when his feelings are hurt and leaves his wife. What kind of husband does that? The kind whose wife lets her ex-boyfriend grope her in front of him," Dave replied coldly. "If you weren't my sister, and you didn't have boys, I'd tell him to just leave your ass and go find someone who won't humiliate him in public." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Diana had always been a good little church-going Southern girl. Hearing her talk like this, saying damn and ass, felt like a slap in the face. Even in bed, she was usually so restrained. It had truly been one hell of a night. The front door opened, and they entered. A moment later, a light flicked on in the corridor, illuminating part of the office but leaving me in shadow. Dave entered the office first, with Diana close behind. He scanned the room and spotted me sitting in the dark in the easy chair. For a moment, he just stared. "Hi, Lyle," he said finally. "Hello, Dave." An endless silence followed. I wasn't going to be the first to speak to her. Diana finally said. "Diana," I replied in the same even, dispassionate tone. "Are you okay?" Dave asked. "I'm fine, thanks for asking," I said, but my voice carried a sharp edge. "You idiot," Diana blurted, her frustration spilling out as if a dam had burst. "I love you too." Her body tensed, and if Dave hadn't grabbed her hand, I think she might have lunged at me. Her hair was disheveled, her face flushed, her lipstick long gone. Her white dress was wrinkled and dirty, with small bloodstains near the hem. Whatever had happened at the party after I left, it had clearly been chaotic. "Clever guy. Always some clever joke," she spat. "You think it's funny to leave me alone, without telling anyone where you're going? Just disappearing? What kind of person does that?" "I don't know," I said flatly. "Probably some thick-headed coward too scared to fight a man who's fondling his wife's breast, with her permission, right in front of all their friends and family." She blushed, and Dave gave her a sidelong glance. "You got us worried, man," Dave said. "Why didn't you answer the phone?" "I didn't want to talk to anyone." Dave rubbed his chin, looking from Diana to me. I guess I'll leave you two to talk. It was a long night, a hell of a night. I'm getting too old for this." He turned back to me. "Are you sure you're okay, Lyle?" I looked him straight in the eye. "I'm just being polite, Dave. No, I'm not fine. I don't know if I ever will be again. But that's not your problem. Thank you for bringing Diana home. If it were up to me, she could have gone home with Bobby or camped at the RV park." Dave shook his head, clearly torn. "Well, then I'll leave. I'll take care of things. Diana, walk me out." From their voices outside, I could tell they were near Dave's Chevrolet Tahoe. "Damn him," Diana hissed. "Dave, he's such a what?" Dave cut in. "Any other guy would have punched Bobby out, gotten drunk, or done something human. He leaves, sits at home, and sulks. But he doesn't fight. I would kick Bobby's ass," Dave continued, his voice rising, "and Tommy's ass, and half the people we know if they tried something like that with my wife. But Lyle? He's not like that. You knew this when you married him. I remember it very well, Dave said. You told me he's not the kind of guy who comes home with oil under his fingernails, gives you 6 or 7 kids, gets drunk every weekend, and spits on you when you gain a few pounds. You said, word for word, he's a man who will succeed. He'll take care of me and our children, be faithful to me, and give us a good life. He's a good man. You wanted something better, Diana, and you got it. And now you're nervous, doing this little dance with a weakling. Which makes me wonder, if Bobby hasn't gotten anything yet, he probably will. Dave paused, his tone hardening. I used to be proud of you, Diana, but now I'm starting to think you're just another available girl in hot pants who'll get divorced 4 or 5 times, drag new boyfriends home every few weeks, and make mom and dad cry when they think about the mess you've made of your life. Oh, Dave, grow up, Diana snapped. I'm not stupid. I felt excited, maybe even a little horny, but I wasn't 17. I played with Bobby because it was nice to feel like a teenager again for one night. My husband should have grabbed me and made me behave, but I forgot who I was married to. She sighed. He's mad right now, but it will pass. It was one night, one fight. I'll go out there, give him some love, and it will all blow over. People don't break up because of one stupid mistake. Dave's tone grew sharper. Damn you, sister. You think because I build houses, I don't know anything about your dear husband? I've got clients and partners whose kids go to JU. They talk. Lyle's young, he's got his hair, he's smart, and a lot of those female students think he's cute. There was a time when he could have had any one of them. And as for women professors, let's just say one pursued him so openly that the dean had to step in and tell her to chill out or face consequences. So, you go out there and give him some love. But don't think for a second that if you lose him, he'll sit around crying into his beer. He won't. Not for long. Diana came back into the house and stood at the entrance to the office. She lingered there for a long time, silent, as though trying to decide what to say. Finally, she crossed the room toward me. I raised my hand. Stop. Take a chair and sit over there by the TV. She froze, surprised. It was written all over her face. She had expected to come over, kneel at my feet, hug me and start kissing me. That would lead us to the bedroom, and everything would magically be fine. But that wasn't going to happen. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. I know, Lyle. I know I acted like complete crap out there today. You don't need to lecture me. Everyone else already has. Jesus Christ. Everyone acts like they're your blood relatives and I'm a stranger. She sighed again, frustrated. But I was drunk, you know? And Bobby was drunk too. You know Bobby and I have a past. We go way back, we met in elementary school, can you believe that? And you should know this, he still loves me. He's never come to terms with the fact that I chose you as my husband. I know it's not good, but sometimes I feel sorry for him. Are you going to ease his pain by having sex with him? I asked, my voice icy. Anger flashed in her eyes. He's in pain. A little flirting makes him feel better. Nothing else was supposed to happen until you walked in like some thug and ruined everything. There was no need for this. He's my friend. You're my husband, the person I love. A moment later, she was sitting in a straight-back chair, the most uncomfortable spot in the room. That was exactly what I wanted. I don't want to change the subject, Diana, I said, but I'm curious about something. I left the campsite around 8 o'clock. My phone didn't start ringing until 11 o'clock. I know the campground is a big place and there was a lot going on, but after that little incident, it took you 3 hours to notice I was gone. You must have felt really guilty about what happened to even realize I was missing at all. If we hadn't had that little incident, you probably wouldn't have noticed until the next morning. That tells me just how important I am in your life. Anger flickered across her face, and she opened her mouth to say something, but then stopped herself, as though suddenly remembering something. "Oh my God, Lyle," she said softly. "Don't you know? You know all hell broke loose after you left. I really did forget about you, everyone did for a while. But that doesn't mean I don't care about you. It's simple." "Well, that's enough," I said curtly. "What happened then?" Diana looked down as though searching for words. "After that, Bobby and I danced a little. I know I shouldn't have done it, but I was so damn mad at you. God, this sounds like I'm 13, but it hurt me that you didn't at least take a swing at Bobby. If he'd hit you, I would have been there, loving you and comforting you. That's what I wanted. You're my husband, but you were gone. So yes, I was angry. I danced with him, and you know Bobby, he was drunk. So after a few minutes, to the toilet," Diana continued. "Knowing Bobby, I figured he'd either head to the lake or behind one of the cabins. I talked to a few people and didn't think about Bobby anymore for a while. But after about half an hour, I started to wonder where he'd gone. I wasn't worried about you because, well, you usually leave and we don't meet up until late in the evening." She hesitated before continuing. "Then I heard a scream, and everyone started running toward the lake. A crowd formed around someone lying on the ground. I tried to get closer, and that's when I realized it was Bobby." She shook her head. "It was terrible. His face was covered in blood. One eye was swollen shut, and I heard that his arm and several fingers were broken. Dave and a few other people were talking to him, and I heard someone say the sheriff needed to be called. Apparently, 3 biker types showed up and smashed Bobby's face in. They were yelling something about our group ruining their party. When Bobby argued with them, all 3 of them attacked him. He said he got a few good hits in, made sure they'd limp for a while, but there were just too many of them." She sighed, her voice growing quieter. "Then everything got chaotic. Someone called the paramedics for Bobby, and the sheriff's office sent 3 patrol cars to check the park for the bikers or anyone else who didn't belong. After all of that, people started checking in to make sure everyone else was okay." I listened carefully, taking note of what she said, and the obvious question came to mind. "And yet," I said slowly, "it took you 3 hours after you realized there were bad bikers roaming the park, to ask where your beloved husband had gone. I must really rank high on your list of important people." She bit her lip and avoided my gaze. Then something dawned on me. "You weren't in the park, were you?" I asked, my voice sharper now. "You wanted to go with Bobby to the hospital, didn't you? You had to hold his hand, didn't you?" Finally, she looked at me. "Lyle, he was beat up badly. He was in so much pain, and he asked me to go with him. I couldn't say no." "Of course you couldn't," I said bitterly. "That seems to be a pattern with you. You just can't say no to Bobby." "Don't do this, Lyle," she snapped, anger flashing in her eyes. "It was a human act, a worthy thing to do. If you weren't so mad at me, you'd see that." "Oh, I see it," I shot back. "He's an old friend you had a night with before I showed up. You had to be there for him in his time of need. You had to hold his hand, didn't you?" Her anger flared hotter, but she didn't deny it. "Lyle, stop this. You slept with him back then, didn't you?" I demanded. She lowered her eyes, then nodded slowly. "Yes, Lyle. You knew that. Everything was serious between us back then. I wasn't some little girl. We made love often. It made me feel good." She looked me in the eye now, defiant. "And before you ask, yes, he was good. Great even. Does that make me some approachable girl? What about you? I know you weren't a virgin when we got married. Should I be jealous of all the women you were with before me?" I stared at her, my voice cold. "That was then. This is now." "Well, now," she said sharply. He asked me to go with him and I went. I held his hand, the one they didn't break. There was an EMT with us the entire time, and people were all around us in the emergency tent while they patched him up. Nothing happened, Lyle. And even if we'd been alone, it wouldn't have crossed his mind to contact me in any way. You have nothing to be jealous of. Did I say I was jealous? I asked, my voice cold as ice. You don't need to, she replied. I see it on your face every time he's around me, and I guess I can't blame you. If you were always around another woman, one I knew you'd been with before, I'd feel the same way. She looked down again, trying to avoid my eyes. Lyle, you know that's not a fair question. There was so much going on. Bobby was injured. People were calling each other. Everyone was trying to figure out what was happening. So no, I didn't think about you. I stayed silent, my anger simmering. When I asked finally, did someone start thinking about me? When did anyone finally start caring that I was gone? She hesitated. After Bobby's brother came to take him home, I came back to the camp with Kelly, and that's when Dad asked me if I'd seen you. Wonderful, Diana, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Your father thinks highly enough of me to notice I disappeared before my wife did. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at me. Keep it up, Lyle, she whispered. I screwed up, and now you're just going to keep piling on, hurting me even more for what I did. That's good. I feel like crap already. Sorry. My bad conscience is probably tormenting me, right? It's hard for me to say, I said evenly, because I didn't deceive you. She lowered her eyes to the floor again, and silence settled between us for a minute. Well, I said finally, breaking the tension, at least we cleared the air, dear. She looked up at me, her expression was puzzled. What? She asked, her voice barely audible. I sighed deeply. I stayed because I wanted to talk to you before I leave. Her face changed, disbelief written all over it. Where are you going? You're not mad at me anymore, are you? I looked at her, her dirty, disheveled dress, the bloodstains marring its once pristine white fabric. She looked so fragile, so broken. And yet, in that moment, I thought she was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. I knew I would never see her the same way again. I have something to do, I said quietly. Something I've been putting off until I could talk to you. After that, I'll find a place to stay, some cheap motel. On Monday, I'll arrange for a permanent place to live and meet with a lawyer. Somewhere for us to spend the night. Her voice rose, panic creeping in. Lyle, are you crazy? What are you talking about? Did we just have a fight? Sure, it's bad, but I love you. People don't run away because of one fight. What happened to you, Lyle? This morning we were happy. What could have happened in less than 24 hours to make you want to leave me? I didn't answer. Instead, I pointed silently down the hallway toward the children's bedrooms. Go, I said. She hesitated, confusion and fear flickering across her face, but then slowly stood and walked out of the room. I knew what she would see when she reached the end of the hallway. My suitcases, the laptop, the briefcase I always carried for work. Moments later, she returned, moving slower now, shaking her head in disbelief. You're crazy, Lyle, she said, her voice trembling. You're leaving me and our 2 sons because of one quarrel? I made one stupid mistake when I was drunk a few hours ago. I didn't sleep with anyone. I didn't betray you. You're just out of your mind. When I didn't respond, she stepped toward me. I raised my hand again, stopping her in her tracks. She froze, then backed away but didn't sit down. Can you at least tell me why? She asked, her voice breaking. Can't you do that for me? I took a deep breath. I had a moment of epiphany. She frowned, confused. It was clear she had no idea what I was talking about. A moment of epiphany? She repeated, her voice tinged with anger. Why are you doing this, Lyle? I know you think you're smarter than me, smarter than anyone in my family, smarter than anyone here. But why can't you just explain this in words I can understand? Why do you have to make us all feel like idiots? She was right. I had taken my intellectual superiority over her and her family for granted for years. I hadn't realized until that moment how much of an ass I'd been. I'm very sorry, Diana, I said softly. This is true. I don't want to do this. Then don't, she said, her voice rising in desperation. That's just what English literature professors think and say, I continued. But it's not that hard to explain. We all walk through life without really seeing what it's all about. We're blinded by the little details of our existence. Waking up, brushing our teeth, going to work, paying bills, wondering what's on TV tonight, worrying about the kids catching colds, or whether we're gaining weight. We never take a step back to get a bigger picture of our lives, except in rare moments. I paused, letting the words settle between us, then added, Tonight, I had one of those moments. You keep saying that, she said, frustration evident in her tone. But what does it mean? What did you see? The next words were the hardest I'd ever spoken, because I knew they would kill the life we'd built together. They would kill the life I shared with my two boys, the ones I loved more than life itself. But Diana deserved to know the truth. I saw our life, Diana. I began, my voice steady but strained. I saw who we are, who we were, and who we've become. It had nothing, or very little, to do with what happened at the party tonight. You're right. Leaving because of one fight, one mistake, one incident would be madness. That's not why I'm leaving. Then why? She whispered, tears beginning to well in her eyes. I'm leaving because I realized something. Our marriage was a mistake. I love you, but you don't love me. I will never, probably never, satisfy you intimately the way you deserve to be satisfied. Deep down, you're a good woman. You would never leave me because you keep your promises. But we're too young to spend the next 40 or 50 years trapped in a marriage that neither of us really wants. That's why I'm leaving. When I finished, she shook her head, tears spilling freely now. I could see the pain in her eyes, a mirror of my own. She was crying for the life that was ending, just as I was. The fact that she didn't love me the way I loved her didn't mean there was no love between us. But it wasn't enough. How can you say such things, Lyle? She asked, her voice trembling. How can you be so cruel? I met her gaze, my expression unflinching. Look at me, Diana, I said. Answer me 2 questions. And if I'm wrong, I'll think again. A look of fear crossed her face, as though she already knew what I was going to ask. Have you ever cheated on me? I asked. Since we got married? Have you been with another man? She said nothing, but the expression on her face, the shame in her eyes, answered the question for me. That's one of the reasons I love you, I said softly. You could lie or try to tell half-truths, but you're too good a woman to do that. You can't lie, but you also can't tell me the truth because you know it'll break my heart. But we both know the answer to this question. Your silence is eloquent. I took a deep breath and continued. And now for the second question. Are you in love with me, Diana? She recoiled slightly, hurt flashing across her face. I love you, Lyle. How the hell can you ask me that? No matter what, you need to know that I love you. That's not what I asked, Diana, I said, my voice calm but firm. Are you in love with me? She looked confused. I don't understand. What are you even talking about? You love your father, your mother, our boys, your brothers and sisters, I explained. I know you'd give your life for any of them, but being in love is something completely different. It's when your breath catches just by looking at the man who makes your heart beat faster. The man who makes you want him when he kisses your neck, when he caresses you. It's when you dream about him when he's not around, when you ache for him. That's how I feel about you, Diana. I don't know if you ever felt that way about me when we got married, but I know you don't feel that way now. You'd make a good sister to me, but not a wife. Her face hardened, and she stood abruptly, stepping toward me. Is this all about intimacy, Lyle? She demanded. That's what this is really about, isn't it? You're angry because I'm not some available girl in bed with you? I love being intimate with you. It doesn't have to be all rockets and fireworks. It can be quiet and nice too. I stood and moved into the light, stepping closer to her. When she saw my face, her breath hitched, and she staggered back. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You never called me Diana," I said bitterly. "You've never screamed my name at the peak of pleasure the way you probably did with someone else. You just lie there, let me do my thing, and pretend you're enjoying it. Do you really think I can't tell how tired you are of my touch?" Her hands trembled as she reached out, gently touching the swollen flesh surrounding my almost closed left eye. Her fingers traced the various shades of yellow, red, and brown that covered my face. My lips were swollen, and one side had a gash where the skin was missing. Her voice shook. "Oh my God. They found you and beat you up too? Why didn't you go to the hospital? Why didn't you get help?" I tried to smile, but the effort sent a sharp jolt of pain through my face. The look on Diana's face told me my attempt was more horrifying than reassuring. "You should look at the other guy," I said flatly. Her expression shifted as understanding dawned. Her face went pale, and I knew she'd pieced it together. "I stood by the lake," I began, my voice low, listening to the music, imagining I could still hear the laughter from the people around you and Bobby. I didn't need to go back to know you were dancing with him. I didn't need to see him holding you to know how it would look. I exhaled slowly. I could have gone back and faced him. I've been beaten before. Back when I was a wild boy running around South Boston without a father. I got into plenty of fights back then, trying to prove I could keep up with older kids. My mom finally wised up and moved us to a small town south of Boston, away from the gangs. But I didn't mind the beatings back then. I probably wouldn't have minded this one either, because I know I wouldn't stand a chance in a fair fight. He's bigger, stronger, tougher than the guy who spends his life standing in a classroom. I paused, the memory heavy in the air. But it wasn't the fight that stopped me. It was the look in your eyes, Diana. The way you wanted me to do something about Bobby's insults. The way you let him hold you, touch you. The way his hands roamed over your body like they belonged there. My voice dropped to a whisper. I think I always knew. But now I can't ignore it anymore. I can't ignore the truth. Bobby had you once, didn't he? You shared something with him that you'll never share with me. And now I can't unsee it. I leaned against the nearest tree, staring up at the cloudy night sky. How do you live your life when it's built on lies? How do you forgive a woman who's your entire world when she's given her body, and maybe even her heart, to another man? Did you laugh at me when you were with him? Did you talk about how pathetic I am? Did you call me a pencil? Is that really what you think of me? She gasped, her voice breaking. Lyle, no. I never said that. I cut her off. Am I really that small? Or is he just that huge? I never thought there was anything wrong with me in that department. At least, no one ever complained before. I heard someone stumbling through the brush and bouncing off the trees. The footsteps were unsteady, like they belonged to someone drunk. They stopped about a dozen feet away, near the lake. Without even turning, I knew who it was. I watched as he unzipped his fly and relieved himself into the lake, the sound breaking the stillness of the night. I hadn't intended to do anything. Violence never solved anything. I told myself that as I stared at him, standing there so carelessly. I didn't plan to hit him. Violence wasn't my way, but before I could stop myself, I charged at him, my fist connecting with his face with all the force I had. The momentum from running added to the blow, sending him spinning and collapsing to the ground. He groaned as he hit the earth, the sound low and guttural. Before he could push himself up, I kicked him as hard as I could in the stomach, lifting his entire body off the ground. This time, he let out a loud grunt of pain. I aimed another kick, hoping to strike him below the belt, but he twisted just enough for my boot to hit his thigh instead. He grabbed my leg and yanked it backward, throwing me off balance. I fell hard onto my back, the wind knocked out of me. Propped up on my elbows, I tried to regain my senses, staring into the dark night. By then, he was already on all fours, touching his forehead with his fingers. I noticed something dark and shiny. Blood. My first punch must have torn the skin, probably from the edge of my college ring with its 2 small diamonds. Damn, Lyle, Bobby groaned, wiping his forehead. I didn't think you had it in you, you weakling. Sure, you had to sneak up on me, but at least you had the guts to try. Too bad for you. Now I'm gonna hurt you. Very, very badly. He straightened up and sneered, blood dripping down his face. And I'll tell everyone, including Diana, how her idiot husband sucker punched me. Hell, she might even think you're the bad guy here. I was trying to get to my feet when he lunged at me, his large, heavy body knocking me down. I hit the ground hard, and before I could react, he was straddling me, pinning me beneath his weight. Rising slightly, he brought his fist down like a hammer. I didn't even see it coming. Pain exploded in my head, as if someone had struck me with a metal gong. My ears rang, and my vision went dark for a moment. Then another blow landed, this time on my nose. Blood gushed, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I tried to push him off, but before I could gather my senses, another punch landed, sending me reeling. My eyes stung as blood trickled into them, blinding me. I thought I'd gone blind for a moment, but I realized it was just the sheer amount of blood clouding my vision. He raised his fist again, but somehow, I managed to shift my head slightly. His punch missed, throwing him off balance. He fell to the side, and I scrambled to my feet. He was on his knees when I stomped down with all my strength, my boot connecting with his face. Blood sprayed, and I felt the crunch of cartilage as his nose shattered beneath my heel. He fell backward, groaning, making guttural noises that weren't words. I tried to kick him again, but this time, he dodged, lunging forward and slamming his fist into my stomach. The force of the blow sent me flying backward, gasping for air. Every breath felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I realized with a sickening clarity that he'd broken at least one of my ribs. Bobby rolled back onto all fours, groaning through his broken nose. His grunts reminded me of the wild boar I once hunted with Richard Carter early in my marriage. There was nothing human in his eyes now, just raw, animalistic rage. And for the first time, I was afraid. He didn't just want to hurt me. He'd lost all sense of control, and I knew he would kill me if he could. I couldn't let him knock me down again. If he pinned me, he'd beat me to death with his superior weight and strength. As he lunged at me, I swung my body out of the way, and he fell forward, landing on all fours again. His left arm held him up while his right stretched out for balance. I didn't think. I just reacted. Grabbing his outstretched arm, I yanked it straight and slammed my weight onto his back, locking his arm beneath me. My knees pressed into his forearm and elbow as I leaned into him with everything I had. There was a sickening pop, and Bobby screamed. A sound so raw and primal it sent shivers down my spine. He thrashed beneath me, rolling back and forth, trying to shake me off. But I held on, like a terrier refusing to let go of its prey. His screams turned to gasps and choked cries, but I didn't stop. I yanked his arm again, forcing another loud crack. Finally, he rolled onto his back, but before he could push me off, I drove my knee into his elbow and pinned him. He gasped, his breath hitching as pain overwhelmed him. I raised my fist but hesitated. Instead, I leaned all my weight onto his broken arm. He writhed beneath me, his cries turning into hoarse, guttural moans. Eventually, I let go and fell back, gasping for air. Bobby curled into a fetal position, cradling his injured arm. He rocked back and forth on the grass, choking and crying. I should have felt worse about what I'd done to him, but this was the man who'd stolen my wife, who'd probably ruined my marriage, cost me my 2 sons, and destroyed the life I'd built. It was hard to feel sympathy as he whimpered in the dark. As I sat there, catching my breath, I realized I could still hear faint strains of southern rock in the distance. The party was still going, oblivious to the chaos that had just unfolded. There were no screams, no sounds of anyone coming to investigate. No one had heard a thing. I turned toward Bobby again and grabbed his injured arm. I grabbed his right arm as he tried to swing at me, jerking it a few times until he groaned in pain. That ended his resistance. "You've already broken my arm," he hissed through clenched teeth. "And you don't give a damn, do you?" He groaned again, the anger and desperation clear in his voice. "I need help, damn it. I need to go to a hospital." "In a while, Bobby," I replied coldly. "But first, we have other things to do." I struck him a few times with my already swollen elbow, each blow making him groan louder. After the second strike, his protests stopped entirely. I grabbed his right hand, pulled it away from his body, and pinned it down. He didn't have the strength to resist anymore. Taking his little finger in my right hand, I pressed it down with my left to immobilize it. "I'm going to ask you some questions, Bobby," I said, my voice calm but menacing. "And you're going to tell me the truth." He glared at me, defiant. "Screw you." Without hesitation, I grabbed his little finger and bent it back sharply until I heard the knuckle crack. His eyes went wide as the finger hung limp at the end of his hand. He opened his mouth to scream, but before he could, I punched him as hard as I could in the solar plexus. The blow knocked the air out of him, and he coughed violently, gasping for breath. He groaned, his body trembling on the grass. I waited until I thought he could hear me again. "Every time you lie," I said, leaning in closer, "or every time I don't like your answer, I'm going to break another finger. And when I run out of fingers, I'll move on to your toes. And after that, I'll find other bones to work on. Do you understand me?" His eyes filled with fear as he finally nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "You're crazy, Lal. Fine. I'll tell you whatever you want. But the day will come when I'll be on top again. And when that happens, I swear you'll disappear. Your body will end up in a swamp, and no one will ever know what happened to you." "Maybe," I said, unflinching. "But right now I want to know something. How long have you been sleeping with Diana?" He was silent for a moment, his jaw tight. "This time?" he asked finally, his voice bitter. "Or earlier?" I tightened my grip on his hand, making him groan. "I already know you slept with her before we met," I said through clenched teeth. "I'm talking about since we got married." A malicious smile flickered across his face, but it disappeared just as quickly. Judging by the shift in his tone, I could tell he was telling the truth. "For years," he admitted. "For years," I repeated, my voice cold. "How did it happen? How often?" A smug, almost nostalgic look crossed his face, but he quickly became serious. I've been after her since the day you married her, he began. I tried everything. Showed up at her work, hung around her house, tried to make her laugh. But she wouldn't cheat on you. It drove me crazy. He sighed heavily, pausing to catch his breath. Then one day, for maybe 4.5 years ago, she came up to me when I was leaving a 7-Eleven. No smile, no flirting, nothing like that. She just asked if I wanted to grab a coffee. We didn't do anything that day, or for the next 6 months. But she came to me first, Lyle. She made the first move. And then, one day, we ended up at my house. She went crazy for me, acted like an approachable girl. Did everything a woman can do to a man. She made it clear she wanted me. God, it was incredible. He coughed again, blood dripping from his mouth. A white fragment, probably part of a tooth, landed in the grass. He spat and continued, his voice weaker but steady. I thought she'd leave you the next day, he said. So I went to your house to see her. But when I tried to grab her breast, she hit me, screamed at me, said she'd call the police and have me arrested for rape. I wanted to kill her. I was so mad. She was a liar, a damn cheater, and I left. Didn't see her again for 3 months. He spat again, then lowered his head onto the grass. I tried to stay away from her after that. I'd never been so angry in my life. But then one day she showed up at my house. Didn't say a word, just walked in, went straight to the bedroom, and didn't leave for 48 hours. She told me you'd taken the boys to your mom's place in Massachusetts and were staying there for a week. We were together for 5 days straight, Lyle. 5 days. She was wild for me, like nothing you'd ever believe. He shook his head and gave me a twisted smile, a boyish grin on his battered face. I thought I had her again, but as soon as you came back, she shut me out. She didn't want to see me anymore. I'd show up at your house while you were there and she was friendly, sure. But that was it. No touching, nothing. He tried to move his hand, but I pressed down lightly, making him wince. That's how it's been for the last 4 years, he said, his voice softening. Every 3 or 4 months, she shows up. We spend a day or two in bed, going at it until we're both brain dead. Then she goes back to you, and it's like nothing ever happened. I stared at him, my mind racing as I tried to process everything he just told me. This wasn't just a one-night stand. For years, she stabbed me in the back, enjoying life with me, the man who didn't have oil under his nails and who gave her a comfortable, good life. And the only price she paid? Putting up with her boring husband. Bobby screamed again and jerked under my grip, but I held him firmly until his thrashing stopped. Sorry about that, I said coldly. I didn't mean to break it. I just forgot for a minute. Bobby's voice was a low, guttural growl. I'll kill you. Slowly. I didn't want to keep going. It was like ripping off a scab, only to expose the raw, painful wound beneath. But I had to do it. I grabbed his third finger. He tried to flail weakly as if he could stop me. But then he froze, realizing I could keep hurting him and he wouldn't be able to stop me. So she stayed with me because of the money, I said bitterly. Otherwise, she would have left me for your so-called great dignity. Isn't that right? He groaned under his breath but then surprised me with a laugh. A hollow, bitter sound. You're an idiot, he spat. You don't understand, do you? I stared at him, my anger surging. What don't I understand? She didn't need your money, you dumbass. I drive a Beamer, Lyle, and I make almost as much as you do. Hell, she told me in bed once. And Richard and Ricky? They've already set things up so she'll inherit a fortune. In a few years, she'll be able to buy and sell you without blinking. I gritted my teeth, my hands tightening. So why does she stay with me then? Because she loves you, he said, as though the words were obvious. You damn fool. I stared at him in disbelief. She loves me? And yet she sleeps with you. Bobby let out a bitter laugh, the sound rasping in his throat. Jesus Christ, you really don't understand anything, do you? She gets something from me she never gets from you. She once told me she could fall asleep while you're making love to her. That's how exciting you are, Lyle. She tries to be faithful, she really does. But sooner or later, she gets so worked up, so damn frustrated, that she has to come to me. And I make her scream. I used to tease her about it when we were dating, called her a loudmouth. She was the wildest woman I've ever been with. And you? You put her to sleep. He looked up at me, his swollen face twisted in pain and contempt. For the first time in my life, I was tempted to kill a man. I could have done it right there, right then. Instead, I grabbed another of his fingers and snapped it. Bobby screamed, but I muffled the sound by pressing my forearm against his throat. When his cries subsided into weak groans, I released him and stood up. Unzipping my pants, I reached for him, grabbing him below the waist and squeezing tightly. His eyes went wide, his face contorting in fear. "Please," he whimpered. "Please what?" I asked coldly, squeezing harder. His body convulsed slightly, and his voice was trembling. "Please, Lyle, don't." "It's funny," I said, my voice low and icy. "I may not be able to please her the way you do, but I can damn sure make sure you never please her, or any other woman, again. One good squeeze, or maybe I'll use the pocket knife I have right here in my pants. Remember that guy whose wife cut off his manhood years ago? They sewed it back on, and he ended up in adult films. But you? I think I'll just toss yours into the lake. Maybe a bass or a turtle will swallow it. I'd enjoy that." For the first time, I saw real terror in his eyes. Bobby's smug confidence, his cruel laughter, all of it was gone. He finally believed that I was capable of it, that I would actually do it. And suddenly I felt sick. What was I doing? I thought about what I was about to do. Crippling a man, mutilating him because I couldn't satisfy my wife. Bobby didn't betray me. She did. I let go of him, and he immediately tried to roll away, cradling his injured hand and curling into himself to protect his private parts. I stood over him, disgusted with him, with her, and with myself. His mangled hand fell limply to the ground as I straightened up. Turning to walk away, I heard his broken voice behind me. "You think I'm the bad guy, don't you?" I stopped but didn't turn around. "I'm the idiot who stole your wife and ruined your perfect little marriage," he continued, his voice rasping with pain. "But you know what? You ruined everything for me." I turned slightly, glancing at him. His face was twisted, not just with pain, but with something deeper. "She was going to marry me, you know," he said, his voice trembling. "She was going to be mine. Those two boys of yours? They should have been mine. She loved me or she would have loved me. We've been together since elementary school, Lyle. She was mine. We were dynamite in bed, you know that? We were the same kind of people. We would have been happy together. And then you showed up. You, with your smart mouth and your pretty boy looks, talking about things she'd never seen or imagined before. You tricked her into thinking you were right for her." I stared at him, my anger cooling into something colder, more detached. "You stupid man," I said finally. "I'm the best thing that ever happened to her. You just couldn't get over the fact that I took her away from you." "Yes," he rasped. "Perhaps. You're right, smart guy," Bobby sneered. "And look how happy it makes her. And everyone else. She tried to love you, tried to live without the passion she needed, and stayed in a marriage that's killing her. I lost the woman I loved, the woman I should have had. I had to sneak around, stealing moments with her, watching her come home to you after our nights together. And you, poor man, will always be the second best. Every time you sleep with her, for the rest of your life, you'll know she's dreaming of me. I don't think I could stand that, but a weakling like you might even like it." Bobby's words hung in the air, venomous and cruel. He looked at me, his face battered, trying to suppress a smirk even as the pain twisted through his body. I stood silently, my chest heaving, staring down at him. Maybe he told me everything because he thought it would hurt me more. Maybe he thought it would destroy me. Or maybe it was because, as I'd learned tonight, people rarely lie when you've broken their fingers. Diana stood nearby, tears streaming down her face, staining her cheeks. "For years," I said, my voice low and hollow. "For years he made you scream. Every time." My voice cracked. Was he really that much bigger than me? Tears rolled over the stains on her face as she looked down, ashamed. She whispered softly, "Oh my God!" I couldn't believe what I was hearing or seeing. Part of me hated her with every fiber of my being. But most of me still loved her. "No, baby," she said finally, shaking her head. Maybe a little, but that's not the point. It's hard to explain. It's been that way since the very first time we were together. No other man has ever had this effect on me. It's like," she hesitated, searching for words. "It's like being electrocuted. It's not exactly that, but it's the closest I can come to explaining it." I stared at her, unable to speak. She continued, her voice trembling. "I thought, maybe if I told you how bored you made me sometimes, or how it wasn't the same with you as it was with him, maybe we could have tried something else. Toys, pills, anything. But how could I tell you, the man I loved, that another man made nights with him great, while with you, they were just good?" Her voice broke. "I knew you wouldn't be able to stand it. No human ego could." I swallowed hard, my voice hoarse when I finally spoke. "Then why didn't you leave me, Diana? If he was so wonderful, why didn't you leave me for him?" Tears fell harder now as she answered. "Because he wasn't. Nights with him were wonderful. But I love you." For a moment, I couldn't move. Then, slowly, I reached out and touched her cheek, wiping away one of her tears. "I know you're not in love with me," I said softly, "but I believe that you love me, and that you love our marriage." I stopped short, leaving the rest unsaid, and stepped past her. I began carrying my luggage and laptop to our family Saturn. I'd leave her with the Ford Escort for her and the kids. It took 3 trips to load everything into the car, but eventually, I finished and returned to the house. She hadn't moved from where I left her. Her arms were slightly extended, as if she wanted to grab me but couldn't bring herself to do it. They hung there, suspended in the air. "I don't want this," she whispered. "Baby, I don't know how to do this, but there has to be some way to fix it." I shook my head slowly. "Actually, no." I leaned down and kissed her. Her lips were salty with tears. "Our marriage is broken," I said quietly. "I want to see the boys. I want to stay in their lives. But us is over. It's gone." "Because you hate me?" she said softly, her voice trembling. I looked into her sparkling, tear-filled eyes. "No, I love you. That's why this is so hard. But you can't breathe life into a corpse." She reached for me again, desperation in her voice. "We could go to a psychologist, an intimacy therapist, anything." "We won't," I said gently, "because deep down you don't want to be my wife anymore. I don't think you believe we can fix this." "How can you say that?" she cried. "Remember what I said earlier? That silence is eloquent. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words." She looked at me, confused, and I continued. "I know you don't really want to save our marriage, because ever since I told you I was leaving, You've never said the two things that would have shown me you still want me. They would have been the first words I'd have said to you if the roles were reversed. But they never left your lips. She stared at me, the question clear in her eyes. You never said, "Don't go." You never said, "Please don't go." When it finally dawned on her, she fell to her knees and covered her face with her hands. She sobbed, her body shaking. She was still crying when I walked out the door. The story ends on a devastating yet poignant note. The protagonist faces the harsh reality of his broken marriage and takes a difficult step to reclaim his life, even as his love for Diana lingers. Should Bobby have stayed away from Diana, and should she have handled her frustrations differently? And I'll see you in the next video.